quite a major thing. Never done it before, but they will actually be able to see me doing the work and be able to tap into the energy fields as well, and also to understand what the work is all about. It's something that's very ancient, that from the divine feminine, that we've got to start opening up again. And it's going to bring immense keys and codes back to humanity that we need now the next 3 years, as we are going into the next harmonic conversion. And then the next 10 years, we need to shift completely, even from the higher 5D into the 7D. So it's a matter from about 2032, we've got to finish that phase. So we're going through immense shift at the moment. It's accelerated shifts. So we've literally got to sort of like move through dimensional space to get to the higher realms again. So it's quite a challenge, but we'll get there. We've got enough.
We just went live, but we'll roll the show out in a second. We got to talk about that, because that same type of forecast falls in line with a couple other people that have been putting some really good stuff out. We'll have to talk about that. All right, so hang on one second. Let me go in and share this to the network. We'll roll the show out in just a minute. We got 28 people in the house. This is my first broadcast from our new place in the evening.
Oh, that's wonderful. Are you still in Hawaii? In Hawaii?
Yeah, we're living here now.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're living in Kauai. Yeah, so it just happened. Can't explain it. She put us through like 6 weeks of initiations, and then we ended up on an organic farm. We can see the ocean and the mountains, and it's very affordable, like very affordable. So, we just keep following the guidance, right? That's all we can do.
Wow, that's amazing.
Follow the fairy tale. That's what All right, let me share. Let me give a shout out to the event is happening, Jim McCarty and that group, and Rising Above, Lisa Fralin, Galactic Federation of Light, Universal Brothers and Sisters Circle, Lavelle Zimmerman and Corey Marshall and Amon Ra and so many others. Juan Jose Savicos Vallejos, News and Revelations of the Light, 5D High Vibe Tribe, Sean Christopher, who else? Twin Flame Healing Network, and a couple others. If these shows resonate with you, please share. And thank you for all the love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing what we're doing every day. Hello, Sasha Grace, Jenna Harmon, Tia K, Nasia Rose, Maria Iverson from Sweden, Yvonne from down in Tasmania, Angel Divine, Charlene Walls, Simone Boitz from the New York City area, Annie, Anna Weberly, thank you for your support and contributions and t-shirts. Michael Gabe, it's half my wardrobe. Neil Devaney, Suzanne Ruby, who else? Jenny Williams, Jenny Morris, Morgan Lee's in the house, Karine Osler, my old friend, Jen Muriel, old friend, longtime supporter, and Karina Bissett. So welcome back, the beautiful Judith Kusel from South Africa, who so many of us, I was only introduced to her a couple of years ago, but so many people I know, including Morgan Falder, for years and years and years. Thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. We're so excited to hear about what you've been doing. Welcome back.
Well, thank you so much for having me back on the show, Todd. I really appreciate it. And it's just amazing to be back here, and welcome everybody else. And thank you so much for listening in. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So you've been, of course, you've written, I know you've written at least a couple of books, and you're working on a book now. And then we were just talking before we went live on Facebook. So you're gonna finish your book up. What's it about? I know it has to do with France, and I think Mary Magdalene. And then you're going to go on a tour. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, the France tour was actually basically, my first book was Why I Was Born in Africa, when I asked myself why I was born in Africa. And I started tapping into the spinal column of the earth and the energy centers, the crystal pyramids and the pyramid grids. And I had to open them up and literally up the face of Africa, sort of the spine of Africa, which is the 33 longitude line, where the Giza pyramids are absolutely in line with. And in doing that work, it became a journey in itself. It was a journey of faith, just like you are at the moment. I literally got into my car and I was told, we'll go, we will show you where to go. And then as I was driving, I would tap into the energy field, download the information, and then would start opening up the energy centers as I was literally becoming a transmitter to do that. I don't do the work on my own. I'm literally just like an instrument that is being used, and then I do the work. So that became my journey of faith, which culminated in my first book, which is Why I Was Born in Africa. And it reveals so much about the ancient history that's never, ever been recorded before of Elysium and the Lion Kingdom. Elysium was a proverbial first paradise on earth. And then there was a wars in heaven. And literally the whole planet was thrown out of orbit as another planet in our solar system blew itself up. And with that, it took a few million of cosmic years for the Earth to be rehabilitated again so that people could actually start a civilization. And then the lion people came from Sirius and Lyra, and they actually built the Lion Kingdom on what remained or what was left over, what wasn't destroyed of Elysium. So my journey had to take me from Africa, and I had to open up the energy grids from there too, because you must remember, as the Earth shifted on its axles, in the beginning there was just one single continent, and that was just one, what the geologists call the supercontinent.
Yeah.
There was just one continent. And with all the upheavals and with the subsequent things, all these continents started breaking up. But still on the one supercontinent, which was slightly broken up, there was no Mediterranean Sea. So I had to go and open up the energy fields right into France. And I had to go and open up that which was of Avalon. Avalon came after the Lion Kingdom, and it was the phase of the Druids. The Druids, the high orders of the Druids. And nothing was ever written down, because you must remember that in those days, everything was stored in energy fields. Like we now store it in a computer chip. In those days, it was stored in energy fields. And you had sun disks. Sun disks were like disks, the CD disk or the CD-ROMs that you put into your computer. But they were actually energetic and on atomic. It was an atom with an energy field around it, which spun very quickly. And all information was stored in these sun disks. Now, in Europe and everywhere, you had sun temples. The sun temples were like big universities of light, if you can call them that. Yeah. And everything was there that they actually taught. And that is where the stone henges came in. And you had massive stone henges that actually been destroyed, or people took them away, like they do with the pyramids or whatever else, because they use that material as building material. It's what happened in so many cases. Or it was just buried underground, like Tobeki in Turkey. And so in France, I literally had to open up a massive Stonehenge that is right next to Paris, where I had to go and open that up. And as I was opening up, the sun disks appeared again, and I was downloading the information. And I had to do this at Versailles with millions of, well, not millions, but thousands of tourists around me.
Oh my God.
I was literally held in this bubble of light, so that I became invisible, and I had to do the energy work there. Wow. And then I was before I went to France, I was even drawing the touring map on the map, as they showed me how to go on the ancient lines and how to do the work. And at one stage, I was thinking of changing my traveling plans, because my travel agent was telling me, no, change this. And they absolutely emphatically said, no, this is how you go, and this is the way you go. So from there, I went from Versailles, and in Paris itself, you know where the Notre Dame is now burnt down. Yeah. I had to do so much energy clearing there, because that is where Marie Antoinette was beheaded, in the Palace of Justice. That place there was so clogged up with that whole island. It's actually an island in the Seine, that I had to go deep underground, literally to the stage we had to in a restaurant and go deep underground so that I could do the energy work there. And the burning down of the Notre Dame is actually the burning down of all which no longer serves humanity, because that used to be, the whole island used to be the most major goddess site of all in Paris itself.
Wow.
But remember, in those days, it wasn't like Paris is now. It was different. It was still part of the Lion Kingdom as it was.
Wow.
And so from there, I had to go to Chartres and do the next energy work at the cathedral there. And amazing things happened there, which I cannot explain, but amazing things happened there because that is also an ancient goddess site. And then I had to go on to Karnak, where the standing stones are. Also, I did that energy work in the middle of a day, and it was a holiday, and cars were streaming past me. And the French, with their national monuments, they just put a fence around it, which nearly on the street. So I had to, it's fenced off, so I couldn't get in. So I had to do it on the street, on the pavement, and literally do the energy work there. And then they moved us to a beautiful place, which had very ancient stonework. And we were sitting under the trees and in the shrub and literally doing the energy work there. And then from there, I was called to Southern France. At Southern France, I had to do the whole history of the Cathars, who were the pure ones, who were so burnt at the stake with the Templars, because the Cathars and the Templars, you cannot separate from each other. They were one and the same. They were the same families that held the sacred knowledge, of the sacred mystery schools that were always there in that part of France. One of the most ancient mystery schools, which links to the Lion Kingdom and to Avalon.
Wow.
And that part there is where I also had to open up Mary Magdalene's ancient mystery schools, which was one for women and girls. And at that stage, when the patriarchy took over, they wanted to destroy that. So her whole place was bombarded, and it literally, the earth opened up and swallowed that. Wow. And I had to reopen that. And as I was doing this, I was shown a mountain. I was standing on top of the mountain where I did this work, and I was shown another mountain, and I was told that's where you need to go, because that's the most ancient of all centers linking to this site. I went there in about 2 days' time. And as I've also built another church over this ancient site. You know, every goddess site about has got a church built over it. And as I went into that, I was literally drawn to go to the altar. And I was still taking pictures of the altar, because the symbolism on the altar was completely different from anything that I've ever seen in any church in my life. And I was trying to decipher that. And as I was standing there, I was literally brought down on my knees. And I had an anointing like I've never had in my life before. And the interesting thing is that as I came out of this, Christina, who was with me, she was a lady from Sweden with whom I stayed with in France, and she drove me through France because she's also fluent in English and French. She said to me, come, have a look around. And there on my side were 3 candelabras that were hidden on one of those niches that they have in the Catholic Church. And she actually was intuitively told to turn the candelabra around. And there were 3 faces on these candelabra. Each one had a different face. Wow. And sure enough, there was Mary Magdalene, there was Jesus, and there was Joseph of Arimathea. So those 3 were there. And I photographed them, because I felt that these were true images. And it was an indication that Mary Magdalene was connected to this church. And I knew it because I felt it with the anointment that I received there. And well, that was France. I went down to the coastal areas and I did some more work there. And I literally freed the whole of the Cathars and Templars. There was a Templar church there. We were driving. I'm telling you this, Todd, because you connected there.
I know, it resonates greatly.
I was driving down this road with Christina, and I said to Christina, before I even saw this, I said, there's a Templar church here, and it's just on the other side of the river, and there is a bridge that goes over it. And I saw myself riding over this bridge with these Templars. I was the only woman in between them, but we were riding over this bridge. And sure enough, there was the bridge still as it is, the old Templar church and the whole sort of things still there, although now it's sort of become a residential area, and the church, the Order of St. John took over the church, and it's now a Catholic. Well, I don't know who it belongs to, but it's round. It's a round church. It's completely round, circular.
Like a
and as we were
dome. Like
sorry?
a dome? Like a dome? Like a geometric?
Yeah, like a dome. That's right, in sacred geometry. And there's also like, an entrance there, the old entrance, to the site where the Templars used to bring in their horses, and the stables are still there. And as we were driving, because you had to go around a circle to get to the parking area where you could park to get to see if the church was open. But I started shivering, and I started shivering from head to toe. And I knew that this is where I got. And I said to Christina, stop. And we couldn't stop. It wasn't a stopping site because it was a narrow road like this. But I opened my window and I took out my camera and I said, this is where the Templar was murdered. And I said, there's a horse there, and that Templar was murdered there. And that Templar was actually a very high-ranking one. Wow. And I took the photo, and it's interesting because the light changed in that moment, but we couldn't stop. We couldn't get in. It was evening time. The church was closed. And when I downloaded the photos, there appeared a man and a horse.
Wow.
On the photos.
Do you know who it was? Was he like the head Templar or what?
He was the head Templar. And what I got so clearly was that he knew that he was going to his death, because the order had been infiltrated in some stage by those that wanted to sort of bring the patriarchy to the stage when the Cathars were under severe stress, when they were burning them by the thousands. And the Templars helped with all that they could to get the ancient information out of that. I remember that my father had a huge library of manuscripts, and I literally took my life in hands to smuggle these out with the Templars. And they were smuggled all over Europe. Those that were there, that was the treasure of the Cathars, because they had ancient knowledge which nobody had. But a lot of it was never written down because it was given from mouth to mouth. And only the insiders ever had access to that. So these guys wanted to have access to that knowledge.
Yeah.
And he couldn't. He allowed his throat to be slit. Yeah. And they just threw his body into the well.
Sounds so familiar to me. But, I don't know if it was you. I think it was Robert Sepper, an anthropologist who makes these incredible YouTube videos. They're incredible. Atlantean Gardens is the name of his channel. But he tells the story about the Cathars and the Templars, but this one was primarily about the Cathars, and they wiped them all out. And there was one bunch left in one little township or, fortress or whatever, and they came in and rounded them up. And they put them in. Yeah, they put them in a stable or some type of outhouse. They put them all in. They locked the doors and they set it on fire. And they never heard a scream. They never heard a word. And they talk about, and I can't remember how he explains it, how basically Holy Spirit just came in and removed them from that pain and suffering. And not a word, not a sound. I mean, that was a really moving piece. And I think it was on one of his videos. Oh, that's amazing. So you do soul readings. You did one for me. The graciousness of your heart. And I really appreciate that. Has anyone ever done yours?
No. I have actually had astrologers doing a chart, and I've had people channeling, some stuff, do readings and stuff, but I've never had anybody doing a soul reading for me.
Well, when you were going across and doing all this traveling, I would say for the most part you were traveling alone, and you would hook up like with that lady who might be a translator or a guide or something. You were what, 15, 20 years ago, doing this on your own, by
Yeah,
yourself?
it was 10 years ago in 2009.
10 years
You know,
ago?
at that stage, I was librarian all my life, and then my whole life crashed, you know, like I said before. And I suddenly could see these energy fields, and I thought I was going cuckoo, you know. I didn't know what was happening to me.
Well,
My whole life transformed, and I mean, I was literally sort of traveling along, and the whole landscape would change, and I would tap into the whole history of that as I was driving along. And I would go to the coffee shop, and I would start, you know, taking my journal out and start writing down and making sketches and things. And that is how my book started. I would take photographs. Wow. And I didn't know, because I was just giving little bits of pieces, you know, little pieces like a jigsaw puzzle piece. And I had no idea what it was. You know, I was tapping into crystal pyramids, and I could actually see them, you know, and I could go into them, but they were in a different frequency band. And it was only later that when I started understanding quantum physics and things that I understand, that as you go, if this is the 3D, then you've got a 4 and a 5 and the 6 and the 7th. Okay. The original life on the planet was on the 7th here. All right. So if the physical 3D is so dense and so slow in energy, that you can't go into that 7th dimensional state in your physical body. Your physical body will disintegrate because it can't hold the frequency band of the 7th. But your soul has got its own frequency band, okay? So at soul level, you can get in there if your soul is that highly illumined or whatever else. There are actually 12 dimensions, and your soul can travel there, but your body can't. Yeah. And that is what I was doing, is that I was actually spanning dimensions and time, and I was tapping into that dimension, downloading it, and then I had to bring it down into the 3D and actually start writing down what I'm experiencing. So when I do the energy work, I also go into the higher dimensional state.
Wow. So what's happening to us now collectively? Are we, because people talk about 3D to 5D, and you talk about, you know, at that point, at some point, it's going to be 5 to 7, back to 7, I guess. Are we going to do that in our physical bodies? Or is it?
Well, since 1994 with the harmonic conversion, which was there, we've been steadily being upgraded. And also the new children that came in from, well, at least, you know, a lot of the indigos that came in, which was after the World War II, and from about 1950s along, they were the pioneers. That's the pioneers that started breaking the ice, you know, That's why you had the hippies. The hippies literally brought the sort of like a revolution to humankind and freed them up from a lot of things. So you had the indigos are now the ones that are the leaders. They've got to bring in humanity into that. They're already sort of like having to step more and more into that higher sort of leadership, because they prepared the way. Excuse me, I just want a sip of water. They prepared the way for the crystal children to come in. The crystal ones were the ones that were born in about 1970s. Onwards, their bodies were already of a higher crystalline form. The old carbon-based bodies are disintegrating. So the crystal children were more sort of like crystalline. Then you had the rainbow children coming in 1994, and they are literally of a higher frequency band already than the ones of the 70s. And now, since 1912, you've got the sun children being born. The sun children are of a completely different dimension. They are the ones that will bring the new humanity into being, the new golden age. Highly intelligent, highly evolved. They will just not take the old patterns, and things will not work for them. That's why they need to be helped from the minute they're born to get onto the right track. Yeah. And don't allow anybody to give them drugs or to actually, vaccinate them. Please, you're breaking these children down before they are even born. Yeah. So gradually our physical bodies have been integrated. So every time we bring light into them, every time we release the emotional baggage, more and more light can come into our bodies. And we are, even at cellular level and a DNA level, we are being reprogrammed so that we can actually shift through the dimensional state. Now, with all these upgradings coming in from the cosmos, this is literally sort of like coming in to help us to rise through this. We are never alone. We've got all these beings from all the galaxies and star systems now literally gathered around the planet, and they're helping us through this transition. Wow. I've been told that as our frequency rises, a lot of souls will just not be able to hold that frequency band anymore. In other words, they can't hold the 3D form anymore. So a lot of life and life forms will go out of extension. They cannot hold that form anymore. But new life is coming in. New life will exist, and new life will come in a different form. So you must remember that the 5D body is not as heavy. Can I say, as the Earth is already reborn in the fifth. The body has to adjust to that fifth dimensional state, which is lighter and brighter, more filled with light, as your light protein building goes up. And then now we're in a 3-year phase now, where this will escalate at a tremendous rate because we're going in 20.
When did that start? Was it in 2019?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So a 3-year phase?
Yeah, and then up to 2021, where the next harmonic conversion comes in. So we literally have to escalate now into the 5D at a much higher degrees. So you will find that a lot of your life will disintegrate. That what you hold on to, the old belief systems or whatever else, just need to they need to disintegrate so that you can be freer and lighter and brighter to get into the 5D world. And then from that phase, from 2021 until 2034, we have to escalate from the 5D into the 7. It's going to be a massive change that we are in here. And a lot of people fear this because they want to cling on to the old lifestyle. They want to cling on to the old, but you can't cling on to anything anymore. Everything is disintegrating. And that is why at the moment you have to remember that your soul is free. Your soul is not attached to the physical form. It borrows the physical form for a while, but it's not the be all and end all of all existence. Yeah. All of us who have actually lost everything in our lives, the last few years, we just don't take the material form so seriously anymore. You start to not attach to it. It doesn't mean that you don't have your comforts and things on it. You just learn that it's not the be all and end all of all existence.
That seems to be also including now relationships and jobs and where you live and stuff like that too.
Yes, we have to learn that the old way of relating is disintegrating. That is why I always see people always say divorces and things, whatever. It doesn't matter. If divorces taught us a great thing about humanity, it taught us to become real. It taught us to stand in our truth and integrity and not to pretend. The thing is, when I started to research, where did marriage come from? Marriage was actually instituted by the church at the stage where the kings had a lot of concubines. Okay, they had a lot of wives, and then the children would start, sort of killing each other so that they could get the throne. So what happened is that the church then just stepped in and said, "Well, listen, guys, this cannot go on because we've got a political crisis, because the church and politics were always sort of like married together." Yeah. And they said, "We've got a crisis here. From now on, the king will have one official wife, okay? And that wife, the children of that wife will inherit the throne." And they enforced marriages on the kings at that stage. And the king started to enforce it on all who followed them, okay? So that the king could actually decree who married whom. And eventually this became a big bartering system where you had the dowry system coming in. And the dowry system was often to marry for political reasons or for land ownership reasons or for having the land stay in the family or whatever else. It was a loveless contract. So I find when I do my twin flame readings, a lot of those loveless contracts, okay, they come together again in this lifetime, and now they can't live together because this old pattern has already repeated itself over many lifetimes. They're here now to dissolve that pattern, to finally get real and to understand that if love is something that you need to bring into relationship. It also closes the sexual area, because if every time somebody enters your sexual area without love, at some stage you close your heart, because it's your body that's being used and it's not, your heart is not inside it. It's something that humanity has got to learn somewhere along the line, that something that is without love brings negative repercussions somewhere along the line.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the diseases in the body are caused, all of them are caused by emotional baggage, by that which was never expressed, never exposed, never spoken about, never brought out in the open, and the wounds were not healed.
Yeah. There's a comment here from Sasha Grace, our sister. She says, we are releasing our attachment to love, which can feel a little confusing at times. And I'm sure she's talking about human love, the roles, the labels, the things that we're expected to do. Love as we knew it. Do you have any?
Well, the thing is, love has no attachment. If we start to understand in a cosmic way, in a soul way, all right, okay. Say, for instance, your twin flame, all right, I'm just talking about twin flame now. Your twin flame was born at the same time as you were. They born in existence, created as pure energy by the divine, all right? You can never be separated from them. You're one and the same soul.
Yeah.
You can never not love them. It's impossible. Love is already in existence there from the minute you are born.
Yeah.
It's just that when we get through all the lifetimes and the illusions where we had pain created, where we had woundedness created, that comes up as a pattern when we meet again. Now suddenly every Charlie Bush button that you've ever had gets pushed by them, because that shows you where you have not loved yourself. It shows you where you have not appreciated yourself. It shows your woundedness up so that you can go and heal that woundedness, so that you can love yourself to the highest degree, and then understand that if you love yourself, you can only love another person as they are.
Yeah.
We often find, well, nobody can love me. I mean, I can't love myself. And that's what you're projecting out. Even if that person tells you 10,000 times that they love you, you're not going to believe them. You're going to say, no, I'm flawed. You can't possibly love me just the way I am. And also it goes off to let go of expectations. We often project our own values onto those that we love, but they have their own value system. And somewhere along the line, we've got to also value them in their value system. A lot of women, they say men are not spiritual, the ones that they are married to. But often they don't understand that men sometimes experience spirituality in a different manner.
Yeah. True. Very true. And you said things are changing, and you brought up the tainted aspect of the sexual power. The sexuality is also changing too in this transition, it seems. Becoming less physical. I don't know if that's the right way to put it. And I know you've done a lot of work and written a lot about the twin flame energy. We're speaking of energy, but that has to be a part of this, I would assume. Do you have any comments on that in terms of what the transition is bringing to our sexuality?
Yes, it's to understand that in truth, the sexual energy is not attached to the body. you know, the fall of mankind came when he started to actually not fall in love with, but to start using his physical body in a way which was not in highest alignment with the divine laws. And the first thing that in any relationship, in any soul relationship, is trust, respect. If trust and respect is not there, love flies out of the door.
Right.
If trust and respect is not there, love flies out of the door. If you cannot respect the person that you are with, if you cannot respect yourself, it comes back to self-respect. You know, self-respect means that I've got boundaries that are put down. I know who I am, and I'm sure in who I am, and I know exactly who I am. And you know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
And in being authentic and true to yourself, you know, the most sexiest thing is being yourself and not trying to pretend to be something you are not. In a relationship, if you try to pretend something you are not, it will show up, you know, in some degree. If the partner will not trust you because you was thinking, oh, well, which one is the right person here? You know, is it this one, that one, or that one? You want to be truthful. You want to be with integrity there, and you want to say your truth. You want to speak your truth. If there is no safety in speaking your truth, you are going to withdraw from yourself and say, well, I can't speak my truth because this person blows up, or they criticize me, or they try to fix me, or they try to make me something I'm not. Because if they try to make you something you're not, you're going to resent them in the end, and you're going to get angry because you say, but that's not who I am. You know, love me for who and what I am, and not for what you're projecting onto me.
Yeah, you sound like my inner voice in my old relationship. Well, that's how it went, though. But I guess everybody was coming from the same place. There's a lot of talk about what's going on now. April was, by everybody's standards, a brutal month. You know, it was a brutal month. It was like, oh my God, the purging and the projections and all that stuff. But May's been a very interesting, intriguing, fast-moving month. There's several people out there that I think have a lot of credibility because they are very authentic. Good information talking about the latter part of May. And, you know, Jason Estes talks about all the purging ending on the 18th of May. There's a full moon on the 18th of May. Amanda Lawrence and stuff, you know, talks about the end of May. Do you have any intel like that? Can you give us any feel of what you understand the present to be and the near future to be like?
It's definitely been a purging in the highest degree, because I've actually been shown how everything is disintegrating at a very fast pace now. But also you must remember that if something integrates, you know, if a vacuum is created, the universe will immediately fill it. And I'm finding that it's shifting now into a sort of like, it's sort of like opening up, almost like we now have to be willing to receive in a greater degree what will bring us the impetus that we need for the next 3 years. All right. So remember that as something disintegrates, it's immediately filled. The universe abhors a vacuum. Anything that's a vacuum, it's immediately filled. There's never, space is always filled. It might just come energetically in a different way that we are not yet there. It's almost like, you know, the other day I had a massive upgrade, and I was shown how, you know, I was shown your physical body, but out of your physical body, you must remember that your energetic body is around it. It's like a shell around your body. And from this shell, there's energy strands that going out now, sort of like strands of energy. And it's starting to sort of like ripple effect through the whole sort of like existence on the planet. So the interconnectedness of life is going to become more and more obvious. You know, the wholeness, the unity, that we are part of the whole. Because as these energy strand goes out, it's interconnecting with everybody else that you are energetically in connected with. And the internet is actually exasperating that, because now we can connect with people from all over the globe. But remember, that's also energy that we are busy connecting with in fun. So as this energy is intertwined, we will start to understand that we're part of a whole family. We're part of a cosmic family. We're part of a whole. That unity consciousness is going to come back to a greater degree. We've got to understand that our physical blood family will often be left behind because they cannot tune into the higher dimensional as we do at the moment. But that's okay. In their own time, they will get there. But just give them the space to be there. They might not always understand, but that doesn't mean you need to hate them or get angry about them. Just say, thank you. That's your path. It's not my path. And as the higher ones, the higher dimensional ones, so they will find each other now at a very high soul level. As often the souls, like the Katars and those ones that were together in the mystery schools of ancient times, that often bore the brunt of the persecutions and things, which is my path now to Delphi, where I have to open up, because there the patriarchy also took over the site. I've got to open up the goddess site there and in Egypt. And as all of this opens up, those are the higher ones will all interconnect now and form one whole. As that whole and whole forms, we will be lifting the whole of humanity through this phase.
Wow. Are you going to be going on this trip by yourself again, or do you have anybody going with you?
No. At this time, I was actually told that Delphi is one of the most ancient sites of the world. It's one of the most mystical energy centers of the world. Wow. And a lot of what has been written about the Oracle of Delphi came out in the patriarchy when they took over. It's a time when it was said that Apollo killed the dolphin, and I always wondered, now why the heck did he kill a dolphin? But the symbolism there is that the age of Aquarius is rising, and the symbol for the age of Aquarius is a dolphin.
Wow.
You see? So this is going to bring back, it was the most ancient goddess oracle site of the world that was there at Delphi. At Delphi. And they always had 12 high priestesses who held that energy center there. All right. Then when the shift came to the patriarchy, they literally took that all over and they turned it into a political center, because eventually the oracle became, they had like people that were, they had spies everywhere. So if a high dignitary came to consult the oracle, they would actually get all the information from everywhere, and then they would give the answer according to that. So it wasn't anymore the priestess who was the oracle. It was actually the people who were manipulating the oracle. And that is when the wealth came into Delphi and people were building statues and monuments or whatever else. So it became like a power center of the world. But that power center was all male. It wasn't a female anymore. So this is now to bring back the original power center of the earth there, and also to connect us to the heart center. The heart and it's also called the navel center of the earth, because your solar plexus is actually your inner sun. So the heart sun and the solar plexus sun needs to be opened up to the higher degree of it. And that is why the most ancient of sun temples used to be at Delphi. It was the sun heart, the solar plexus heart, the heart of a cosmic whole, right there. And that linked directly to Egypt. Egypt too used to be a great Isis sites there. And all those need to be opened up so that the heart energy and the spinal column, the spinal column is like a lightning rod. It's the conduit of all the energies coming from above, go through the spinal column and into the earth, and then bring up from the earth again through your head upside. If your spinal column is not opened up to the highest degree, there are blockages there, and the energy flow cannot come through you into the earth. People talk about the Antakarana bridge, but they don't understand that your spinal column is directly linked like a tuning fork to the cosmos. And in the ancients knew that. They knew that your spinal column was just as important as any other energy center in your body. And if that center was blocked in any way, you could not be a conduit for an oracle. You could not become a conduit for the divine in a higher sense. So that is why all these years I've been working with the spinal column of the earth, because our spinal column links directly to the spinal column of the earth.
Wow.
And Giza lies right into that spinal column with Delphi. Delphi looks a bit as if it's off center, but it wasn't off center. It's actually one center. And this is very important work, because it's going to open up the 7th dimensional frequency band for the planet at the higher degree, which is heart-centered. And that is bringing the balance back in a higher degree between the male and the female, and also the mind and the heart. And when we start getting those two together in a beautiful balanced way, the masculine and feminine, the shadow and light, we are moving into a state of equilibrium, which is the 7th dimensional state.
The 7th?
Dimensional state. It's a state of equilibrium.
The Mother's Day was very powerful yesterday. I saw a lot of comments, a lot of posts. Seemed to be, I received a message, a voice message from a friend who I'd never really spoken to, who channeled from the Pleiadians some stuff about Mother Mary, Magdalene, what's happening, the equality of the divine sacred feminine, and basically how things are going to change real quick, and we're going to see that. It seemed like a very solid transmission. I skipped through it a little bit. I'm going to go back and listen to it with Morgan. But can you shed any light on that?
Yes, that is why. You remember that candelabra that I told you about in that church that I did? Well, I blew me down a few months ago. Somebody sent me a photograph from a cave in Egypt, where exactly the same faces came up in a depiction that they made in the cave of Mary, of Jesus and his disciples. And this is at Amarna, where Akhenaten had his major city. When I looked at that, I actually had such energy going through me, and I knew exactly now why I was led to that. And in my downloads now on this book of France, Mary Magdalene's whole story has come through in a degree that I cannot even explain. But she was born in France, and her whole journey with Isis, all right, in the Lion Kingdom, with Osiris, started the first 7 mystery schools on earth. That is all in my book on France. And Isis, when her 2 sons were busy starting the wars that destroyed the Lion Kingdom, said that her schools would be preserved and would rise again. My journey now has led me through Mary Magdalene to Delphi. And that Delphi connection between France and Greece is immensely powerful. And even the Druidic history tells you that. Because the ancient Celts knew exactly which sun paths to follow, and knew exactly how it linked up between Montsegur, where the Cathars had their last stand, and Mary Magdalene's school, and Delphi. Those are the ancient sun paths. And then those sun paths go down into the river Nile, which is a man-made river. And the ancient African oral tradition tells you that the Nile is a man-made river. It is not a natural river flow. If you actually go and you see how the White Nile and the Blue Nile come together, you'll see that there's hydraulics there at the highest degree. We just don't see them at the moment. That is the spinal column of the earth. But Isis, her Isis schools in the ring were preserved through all the ages, and the Cathars were preserving that knowledge just as much as Mary Magdalene was. She was a high initiate, and she was trained in Delphi, and then went to Egypt where she met Jesus, and that's where they got married and got to the Essenes. With the Essenes were part of the same thing. That is the next journey. But my journey in Greece and Egypt now is a tour where for the first time, I will be inviting people to go with me. And I know, because I've been told by my higher guides, that those that need to be there will be there because they're called to be there. They made an oath to be there at one stage in their soul life. And that is why they need to be there. They'll be drawn there energetically. And together we will make that rise again. Because those mystery schools that were the female ones were totally liberated from the records. They were totally written out of the ancient knowledge or history that was there, because people were threatened by the woman in a way that the men could not handle at that time. Why? Because a woman is a natural transmitter for the divine. She's naturally psychic. She's naturally intuitive. And a woman will always follow things from her heart more than her mind. And that is where the balance needs to now come in. As the balance comes in, the man will learn to open his heart even more. They're already doing so. Sometimes it's some beautiful letters from men at the moment, and saying how their lives have changed since they opened their hearts again. And they're also reconnected to their own souls. A lot of them are coming to soul readings now for me and say, wow, I've always known this. But, a lot of men were forced to sort of like become what the society wanted them to become, and say, this is how a male actually operates, go into that model. But the thing is, they're more than that. When I was working at the museum, I worked with these men, the South African army men, were forced into the army. And often they would tell me their stories, Some of them were highly sensitive, and they were broken by the army. They never could recover themselves from that because it wasn't their sutrolled path. It's not to say that the army has not got a role to play and that some are called to be in the army. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that if you force people to become soldiers and they're in heart not a soldier, you are breaking them at some level, and the woundedness remains. So you see, it's getting past the role models that people put onto the woman and say a woman is only valuable if she marries a man and if she has children. All my life, I've had the label and say, well, okay, you're not married, that's why you are different, I always say to myself, oh yes. Am I different? I've got a heart and a soul just like you. But people label you, they label you and they say, oh, you're different from us because you're not married, and also to myself, but that's a path of the soul. It's not to say that I won't get married or that I can't get married or something, but marriage isn't the be all and end all of existence.
Right.
And that is what divorces are telling us. It's telling this woman to get real. It's telling the star to stand in your truth and integrity. Go and become who you truly are. Become creative in that you are. Empower yourself. Empowerment means that I will go and do what I love and love what I do, and I bring that to humanity in my own way.
We had Victoria Lilliquist on yesterday. She's been communicating with Star Family since she was 5 years old. Incredible story. She got some intel last summer. It was a very comprehensive intel, but one of the things she talked about was that as we go through this, everyone's going to be coupling, is the word she used, that couples are going to come together and not to worry. She even talked about how some of the higher aspects were, through her intel, through her channeling, we're going to be embodying, here, the body here, to bring this to be. What is the importance of that? Why does that happen? What does that mean?
It means that we, I read this beautiful piece by Dr. Joshua Joseph Stone one day, which really, to me, opened up the whole thing about your soul mission and purpose here on earth. He says we've got to remember as souls that we are here to anchor in the physical reality of the divine. in other words, you see, a lot of light workers want to get out of this body, you know. But the thing is, we have to create heaven on earth. That's what we are here for. We have to create it in physical form. And you can only create it by going deep within yourself and by really empowering yourself at soul level, which means you walk your path, you walk your truth, you are there and you're doing the work that you're coming in with. The thing is also a relationship. You give each other the freedom to be, you know, to be the greatest that they can be, okay? Without trying to change them, without trying to fix them, but flowing into each other and growing ever closer. You know, the more you appreciate somebody, the more you love somebody, the more you start valuing them and they value you and you respect and trust them, the more you grow closer to them. That is how the new relationship will be. And then when you really come into union, you have the most profound union because you can literally experience the divine through union.
Yeah.
But that union has to come on all levels and not just on the physical level. It's got to go on all levels. And that is the gift of the new humanity, is that you finally realize that if you love at the highest degree, that love and that respect and that trust will carry you into creating something extraordinary together. You don't want to create something ordinary. You want to create all the patterns that your parents had before them and your grandparents and everybody else. You want to create something new and extraordinary, which is going to inspire humanity. It's going to show them the higher way. That is the new relationship. That is the new way of life. So that even through what you are doing, you know, your service to the divine, you are anchoring it into Mother Earth, but you're also showing a higher way of life. You're creating it. With every breath that you are taking, you are creating that. That is, I become so inspired by it because when I think of it, that everything that you put out there in energy has a ripple effect. A master knows that everything they put out there has cause and effect, but we're transcending those laws now if we get into the state of equilibrium, where you realize that if you create in one with the divine, you create for the greater whole, and all synchronizes and all comes together beautifully. And that is what I always want to say. I want to create a lasting living legacy to humankind, where they understand that they are called to much higher things in life. They are called to be the unique soul self and bring those beautiful gifts and talents and abilities into higher service at mankind. But at the same time, learn unconditional love at the highest degree. Truly unconditional love, where I accept you just the way you are. You are another me. I am another you. And I will respect you for being who you are, and you respect me for being who I am. And together we can grow closer in unconditional love.
Yeah. I'm speechless. Not to mention, I popped out and popped back in. I don't know what happened there. That vibration got really high and you froze and went off the air. It came on by itself. I didn't even press Zoom again. It just came on by itself. But these are the things that are happening. These anomalies are not anomalies anymore. I want to. I don't want to get to the end of the show and not talk a little bit about what you're doing and how we can support you. But I want to ask you one last thing first. There's the star family presence is closer and closer and closer. People are reporting sightings, visitations, and so on and so on. How much of them do you think we'll see? Do you think we'll literally see them in a collective scale, as some people are saying?
They've never left. They've never left. In my book on Africa, I show that they still have their space stations in the earth.
Yeah.
I always call, I always see them, you know, I always see them. And the other day I was actually sitting on a balcony looking out on the mountains and sea, and they showed them to me, and they were showing me how they were working, you know, at the energy fields of the earth here, you know, whatever else. So they are there. The thing is, you know, you won't always see them with your, you know, physical embodiment unless you tune into them, but they can make themselves visible or invisible. You must remember that often they will project an image of themselves so that you can see them, because a lot of them are now 7th, 9th, even 12th dimensional beings are now here, you know, helping this transition. They are on such high frequency bands, you can't see them with your physical eyes. You can't see their mothership with your physical eyes. But you can actually tune into them with your third eye. You can see them. And if they want to be shown in physical form, they will, but they can make themselves visible, invisible.
Yeah.
We all have that ability. They can bilocate and they can make themselves visible and invisible.
And what about,
the thing is, yeah.
I was going to say, and what about the elementals? There's been more people talking about the elementals.
They are making themselves known. You know, the thing is, at one stage in Atlantis, you know, when people were abusing their powers and they were starting to enslave the elementals, they withdrew their energy. But they from the 5th dimensional higher, and they are now making themselves known to man. It's not that they never left. You know, they've always been there, but they didn't want to work with human beings because of them feeling that the human beings were not ready for them. They were not ready to work with them. It's like the elementals in crystals. That's why crystals are now being returned, because the elementals in crystals are now ready to work with humanity again. And in ancient times, they always worked with the elementals, and that is why the elementals knew how to actually take solid forms of marble, for instance, disintegrated, or crystal, you know, disintegrated into about feather lightness, and go and put it exactly where they wanted to build it, and then it would manifest into form again. If you don't work with the elementals, you can't do that. You've got to work with the elemental within the rock, and the rock will disintegrate, become feather light, and go and do exactly what you want it to be. That's how they built the pyramids. And also, you can, through this whole, with elementals, create the most beautiful ecosystems, create the most beautiful gardens. We need to work with them again if we want to create eco villages, if we want to create eco gardens, if we want to create, don't use pesticides anymore. I had a classic example. My editor the other day was talking to me, and she was getting, so she's got a beautiful garden. She loves gardening, and she was getting irritated because she was putting the seedlings in for the poppies for the spring, and the birds were coming and eating it as she were planting them. I said to her, well, just call in the fairies and the gnomes and just ask them to go and speak to the birds and say to the birds, please, there's so much other food you can go and eat, you know, further away, go and eat that, and please leave my seedlings alone. Within an hour, the birds were gone and they never returned. So don't ever underestimate calling in their help. If you need your gardening, if you need to grow vegetables, look at the Findhorn Gardens in Scotland. I don't know if you ever read Eileen Caddy, but how she was led, you know, with her husband to take this bog area in Scotland, and they turned it into paradise, where just by working with the elementals.
Wow.
So, you know, they grow the most amazing, the biggest vegetables there, the most nutritious vegetables, the most amazing plants at the Findhorn Gardens in Scotland, just because Eileen Caddy listened to what her guidance was telling her and started working with the elementals. We can turn this earth into paradise again if we start listening to what the elementals have to tell us and start working with them instead of using pesticides and everything that kills the environment, instead of working with Mother Earth and the environment.
And would we communicate or attempt to communicate with elementals as we would a star family, just by initiating the conversation and you know, being aware or more aware?
Yeah, you just call them in. You know, call in the fairies and the gnomes and whatever. They read your intent. They read, you know, your heart. They read you what is it that you really want to create here. And also with the dragons that have now been returned, you know, I was always very skeptical about the dragons.
I was too, but since I've been in Hawaii, since my first 6 weeks in Hawaii, I'm a believer. I'm a truther.
Yeah. Now I work with them, and they're actually quite fun to work with. So you can call them in. Just call them in and say, please, come work with me. But as I say, they read your heart and they read your intent. They will come and work with you if you're going to work against them, or you're going to use it for the wrong purposes. Because remember that we are busy creating a new Earth. And the most amazing thing is that new elementals have come in from other galaxies and star systems. And they're helping now to clear up the oceans. They're helping to clear up, a lot of the pollution on the planet. So they're busy helping Mother Earth now to start breathing again and to start being reinvented and reborn. And I mean, if every one of us, in our own way, can do something about the environment by picking up plastics if you go and walk somewhere, or doing your own bit in your own way and not using plastics anymore. I was so horrified the other day. So there was a cyclone that hit Mozambique, and it also hit the Natal coast. And the whole Natal coast was literally strewn with plastic. Plastic and more plastic, and the whole of Durban Harbour was filled with plastics. Please, let us get rid of the plastics and start using natural things. Everyone can do their own way in their own bit to help. Because you must remember, not even the elementals, the merpeople, the mermaids and the mermen are just as real as anything. They also withdrew because they started imprisoning them at the time of Atlantis. But they still have their cities and abodes inside the ocean, and they look after the dolphins and the whales and all the seas and whatever. They are just as willing to work with humankind again if you call them in than ever before. They're doing massive clearing works in the oceans that humanity is not even aware of.
Wow.
So just be aware that these beings exist. They're just not visible to your eye like this, but they are visible to your inner eye. And if they really want to make themselves visible to you, they can. But they just don't like doing it. It's so funny because I did a soul reading a few months ago for a lady in Belgium who bought an area which she wants to, it's near a forest and a river, and she wants to turn this into a retreat center, an eco place. And she says, well, she doesn't know because she's being blocked in some way by doing this. And in the soul reading, it came out that the elementals were worried because they are actually, the forested area there where they find was so sacred. It was one of the most sacred places on earth. And they were worried that if human beings come into it, they will destroy the forest, and they were not allowing it. So they were actually telling her, listen, if you work with us, we will show you where to build and where to put your paths and where to plant your plants, and we will help you tend them. But just respect our sacred area and don't let any human beings come in there that's going to not respect our space.
Wow. Amazing. So you're going to be you're finishing your book up on France.
Yeah,
and
right.
And then you're going to be heading out for a couple of months.
Well, I'm not heading out. I'm doing my normal work, and then in October, from the 21st of October to the 2nd of November, I'll be doing Greece. That's a tour of Greece, and the opening of the retreat center in Delphi. I'm giving 2 seminars in Athens, and then we go and do tours, and we go to Delphi. And in Delphi, I've got a retreat for 2 days. And where we're really going to do intense energy work together. And we're going to really work together so that we can open up this massive energy center there that we need to open up again. And then the tour ends in Athens again. And then I'm going on to Crete for a whole week because I need to do energy work there. If people want to come with me, they're free, but they've got to do their own thing, with me. Or
Well, you're gonna...
And then on the 9th of November, we go on to Egypt until the 24th of November. And I also start there with seminars. And then we're going to follow the ancient sun path there. And we're also going to have a Nile cruise for 3 days.
Wow.
That Egypt part is very, and then we end up at the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx, where we have private time there, where we can do energy work there. But we first have to open up the lines down to the Isis sites there and come back up the Nile River again. All of this is going to be one of the most amazing things, because for the first time, I'm going to share with people how I tap into energy fields, how I download it. They can actually witness it, and it's going to be video recorded. Everything is going to be video recorded, and then they can be part of it. In other words, they can become part of the energy work, and also we're going to go very deeply into but they will have soul keys and codes activated within their soul memory banks will start triggering, and it will activate them into the 5th and 7th dimensional state, so that they can really work on the planet in a higher degree.
Wow, that sounds like perfect timing toward those 2 months at the end of 2019. When you're going to be spending some time in Athens, we made a really powerful connection with a woman like you, very powerful in Athens, and has been there for years working with a team. So maybe that connection will help you. They're very serious about what they do. They're very legitimate. Yeah. So it's and there's some people here asking about the Greece trip. Where can they find you? Where can they find more information?
They can for the trip, the Greece tour, the Greece and Egypt tour, they can just send me an email at info@judithkusel.com, and I will send the brochure to them. It will be on my website within a week. My web team are just working on that, but it's best that they get the brochure, and it's quite an extended brochure with all the information they need. And they can contact me at info@judithkusel.com, or then you can go into my website for my soul readings. That's http and then www.judithkusel.com.
Yeah.
And
I was just saying, I would highly recommend that. Every time I talk to you, I got to go back and read the one you gave me. And yeah, and I told you this last time I talked to you. I had 3 people write me and tell me I had Judith. I just got a reading from Judith, and yeah, it was all raves. But yeah, so judithkusel.com, right?
Yeah, and then they also can buy my book, Was Born in Africa, there online. And they can go into Amazon, and in Amazon I've got 2 books. The one is Soul Empowerment, which they can download. And then also my latest book is on twin flame love. It's called An Ode to Love and Being Loved, where I go into this whole relationship story and how the new relationships are being born and everything else. Yeah, that's actually got a 5-star rating on Amazon.
That sounds like a very interesting subject. Sounds
yes,
like a very interesting subject.
And I've got my poems on there as well, my poems that I've written.
Oh, yeah. Well, you've done so much for the community and for humanity. I think, as this is a year of expansion and co-creation, collaboration, those of you who are watching live and those who watch the replay, please get over to judithkusel.com and the other links that she mentioned, and let's support this beautiful, divine elder, teacher, friend, sister, and yeah, and let me know as time goes on. I'm sure we'll collaborate again with all grace, and we'll help you expand the awareness of these trips. There's a lot of people in that part of the world that we're connected to. I think that would be very interested that are doing that same type of work. Really,
thank you. Thank you
really
so much.
Thank you.
And Todd, may I thank you for all the work that you're doing. You are a bright, shining light to the world, and I thank you so much. And I know that you do it from the heart and soul and all of your being. Thank you so much. I know it's not been easy, but then who of us has been at an easy path? One of us has.
No.
We all have challenges.
But it's getting easier. It's getting easier.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You take care. I'll see you again. Bye-bye, Judith.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.